Hi everyone. So about 4 days ago, I put a post on asking, what do you struggle with most with your shadow work? And I've had a few responses here, and I wanted to respond to them. One person said, not reacting to someone who has not dealt with any shadow work as though I had not, as though I had done none myself. And so I think there is something very important in honouring our level of understanding. Um, but also there is also something in very useful in using the right language and way to communicate that with certain people who might not generally be interested in the kind of journey that you've been on in terms of sort of self-development. um, so not reacting to someone who's dealt, yeah, the other thing is also when you're dealing with like family members and old friends, um, you would usually have a certain way that you would communicate with that person, and possibly if that's the kind of person who you have problems with, you will be looking for new ways to kind of deal with that an issue whenever it comes up. And then so with shadow work, we reflect and we decide that possibly the way that we're doing things, the way that we are currently reacting to certain situations is not really working for us, and so we have to think about new ways of dealing with these problems, ongoing problems. Um, the next stage is doing. It's actually kind of finding an opportunity to say, okay, so when this happens next time, I'm going to do things slightly differently and say something different and react differently, and just see how that plays out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I understand what you're saying about not reacting to someone who has not dealt with any shadow work as though I had done none myself. That's kind of putting yourself at the same kind of level of understanding as them. It's not that you want to elevate yourself, obviously, because that's not really what we want to do. But I guess sometimes it's also about choosing your battles, and deciding whether or not that person can really meet you at your level of understanding, and how much you might be able to information you can impart with them, in order for them to actually understand. So some sensitivity is needed there with dealing with those people. The next person says, I use my natal chart to guide my shadow work, and I'm stumped at finding out my north node is conjunct Nemesis asteroid exact degree. It's a block because I don't know how to interpret that. I wish I did. I don't know either. Sounds very complicated. Um, I'd say that using your natal chart is a really brilliant way at the very beginning of your shadow work to start to understand what's kind of hidden within your personality, because it can show you things about yourself that you didn't know before. It can maybe sometimes highlight, or make sense of some of your characteristics that you either like or don't like, or some kind of things about yourself. I remember finding out that I had my moon in Capricorn, and I've always had I've always had a bit of a battle with most Capricorns, but I'm on the cusp. I'm on the cusp of Sagittarius and Capricorn. So so finding out that I had moon in Capricorn somehow was it kind of it was like my shadow meeting me there, because I've always kind of thought as Capricorns as being, rather difficult characters for myself in terms of the people that I've met. That's not for everyone, but it actually turns out that it's part of my moon. So it's actually more of a projection, I guess. But I mean, it is definitely a great way to find out stuff about yourself and to understand yourself better, looking at your natal chart. Also, the Myers-Briggs personality test, which I will repost again today, if you haven't already done it. And then there's also the Enneagram. I think it's called an Enneagram. Well, I don't know how you say it, but I will repost that again. And these are like very simple tests that you can take, which look at your personality and let you know what your personality is in terms of how they equate it. The Myers-Briggs test is sort of based on Jungian psychology, and it will kind of level out and show you what your inferior and superior functions are in terms of thinking, feeling, judging, and intuition. And that is a very good way to find out more about who you are. And I mean, some people say that it never changes. Your Myers-Briggs shouldn't change, but actually I found that over the years mine has changed, and I think that most people's probably do. And I think especially if you're doing a lot of work and trying to find balance in your life of those kind of thinking, feeling, judgment and intuition, if you're trying to find balance within yourself, and you know ultimately you find it, if you're looking for it, you'll find it. There would most definitely be a change in your personality after time. And if the test is anything to go by, it will show it. Right, the next one is forgiveness. Forgiveness is a difficult one because it really means letting go. It means, you know, either if you have to forgive yourself and you have to let go of the things that you don't like yourself for, or that you can't forgive yourself for. And it takes a lot of consciousness. It takes a lot of sitting with it to really know it, and to kind of go through the whole feeling of, you know, what it is that you're beating yourself up about. And then it really is about, you know, deciding that you're going to let go, and how are you going to let go, and how is it going to look in your life when you let go. It's also a great thing to do some kind of ritual for it, you know, create your own. Light a candle and burn some sage and talk to your spirit guides, or whatever it is that you want to do. Have a word with your higher self. Think about what it looks like, and also maybe think about what it looks like not to let it go, not to forgive yourself. And the other thing is also with forgiving, with forgiving other people, we can forgive other people without them knowing. They don't need to know it, and they don't need to accept it. And also, just because we forgive someone doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have them in our lives anymore. If they are toxic to us, if they don't quite treat us with enough respect, if they do anything which we find is toxic to us, to our health, then we can let them go, and we can also forgive them. I don't think forgiveness is always necessary. This is a personal thing, and everyone is welcome to their own opinion. But I think letting go is good for us, you know, for us personally. But I don't necessarily think that. I'm going to say this again. So I don't think forgiveness necessarily means that we need to let that person back in our lives. I think that we can let that person go in terms of what they've done to us, or how they've made us feel, or how we perceive they've made us feel. But we don't necessarily have to have them involved in that process. So forgiveness is really about letting go, in my opinion. And it is good for us, but I don't think it's necessary. The other thing is with forgiveness is the New Age community very much kind of bang on about that you should forgive everyone. And I do believe that, you know, forgiving is good for us, you know, because we let go of, you know, negative emotions or attachments. But I don't think it's necessary if it means that we're forgiving evil, you know, because if we forgive all, like some of the New Age philosophy says, then we will be, you know, subject to forgive every evil. And there are some things that we can't forgive. You know, there are some evils in the world that we cannot forgive, and they must be rooted out. And so that there is a difference there. So forgiveness, as I've said, it is letting go. We have to decide whether or not it's the right thing, whether or not the other person needs to be involved with it, you know, within that kind of that process, or if it's kind of an inner thing that we need to sort out. The next thing here, I've got addiction. When I think about addiction, I think about an image of, and I've seen it drawn, I think about an image of somebody putting like a dummy, like a pacifier into someone's arm, into their own arm. It's like a kind of a comfort. It's a way to stop hurting. So any kind of addiction, whether it's gambling, drugs, alcohol, whatever it could be, porn, overeating, undereating, these are all ways for us to feel some kind of mastery over our situation, and to not feel the pain of it anymore. You know, it's a distraction, and it's a way for us to feel that we've mastered ourselves in some way, but it's completely false. There is no mastery in it, you know. So I mean, I guess it really just depends on what kind of addiction it is as well. You need to look into, you know, how best to sort of heal the addiction that you have. And some people are not ready. You know, people have to be ready to want to heal from addiction. You know, it really is like the next level of pain and suffering. It's a heightened level, and you would need to get support with that, you know. But any kind of healing, you know, any sort, you can't do it unless you have the will to really want to change that. And you can change it, and I've seen it. You know, I have a close family member who did have an addiction and completely turned their life around, really quite surprisingly. And so I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it all around me actually growing up. When I grew up in London, very central London, and I saw addiction all around me. So yeah, it's something that can be worked on, but it does require help. It does require help, and it requires understanding of what it really is. You know, I think people also, they beat themselves up so badly over addiction, but when you see it as a real cry for help, and the real need to, you know, master themselves, and to deflect that pain, that you can understand it better then, you know. The next one here, I've got doubting myself, spending too much time lamenting the past and having negative thoughts about the future. Doubting myself. Now, I know this person has probably done a lot of shadow work already. I know this person, so I would say doubting yourself. Don't we all? We all doubt ourselves. It's a sickness. What's the opposite? The opposite would be some kind of narcissistic elevation, I guess. But I mean, we will all doubt ourselves, you know, and this really comes down to self-mastery, which is a huge part of shadow work, which is you know, you kind of come to a point when you're suffering where you have to say, I don't want to suffer anymore. I've suffered enough, and I've done the work. I've done what I needed to do, and I can move forward now. So doubting, you know, if the doubting yourself and the spending too much time lamenting the past, if that's not kind of taking you to a place of heightened consciousness, if you've already kind of got there, but you're still, you know, in that process of kind of beating yourself up about what happened in the past, and even if you're in that situation where, you know, you have these unwanted thoughts and visions and ideas about the past, if you're in that kind of cycle, it really is about mastering yourself. And I think someone in that situation may need a bit of help from outside, possibly an energy worker, possibly shaman, or someone to talk to who's very sort of intuitive, and can just kind of head people in the right direction. On the odd occasion that I've been in that kind of situation, I've often looked for sort of spiritual counselling in some way, and I don't always rate spiritual counsellors, to be fair. I generally, they don't usually tell me anything that I don't already know, and I end up counselling them. It's like, I just paid you, and then where's my money? You should be paying me. But lamenting the past, yeah, that's a nasty one. And I do think that you know, if you haven't gotten anywhere with, you know, sort of the past already, you might actually need a bit more guidance in terms of like looking into your dreams and seeing where they're taking you, seeing what they're saying to you. Negative thoughts, yeah, that's a kind of a compulsive, you know, that's something really, there's something unconscious still there. If you're still getting kind of sort of these compulsive negative thoughts, and there's something still there that you haven't quite understood yet, I think. Negative thoughts about the future, to be honest, I mean, look, with what's happening in the world, I think we have to be very, very careful about what we consume, in terms of what we're watching, in terms of what we're reading, in terms of what we're putting our attention onto. And it is, you know, you know, these are very difficult times, and we don't know what's happening. We don't know what the future holds. But I think the one thing you should hold is a vision of the future which is positive, and that does requires some conscious consideration and creating in the mind of a situation that you want to be in the next 20 years. So I've just created my own one for in 20 years time, when I'm going to be 64. And And I'm kind of thinking, what do I want that to look like? I want that to look like grandchildren and, not too many wrinkles, please, and a nice big home and a great big garden with loads of fruit trees and reading the newspaper and not being absolutely fucking horrified. Or, and a thriving business and, things that make me happy, the people around me that I love, and me be happy, they be happy, so kind of you need to create an idea of the kind of situation that you want to be in the future, and the people within that, and be specific. So the next one I've got here is rejection. I purged just about everything else, but I struggle with rejection. I guess that's very deeply rooted. Well, it is. I mean, the rejection is, all of these things that we suffer with, they're all masked opportunities. Rejection is a real nasty one, and one that I have to also work on a lot, and it will come up in relationships, no doubt. And it can start in, with your family. It can start with your mother and your father. For me, it was my father. It was the rejection of the father's love, and I saw it in every man. Unconsciously, I saw it in every man's eyes after that. And I was never aware of it. It was just this inner battle that I had between myself and them, and so I would create it. I would create it, and I think also their own shadow played out in that. And in a way, it's like my animus, their anima. My shadow, I was saying today, my shadow is male, and and I'd say within that battle, I'd almost imagined that previous partners, that their shadow was female, and that there was a battle between them. But with rejection, we have to look at our behaviors, and how is that rejection affecting our behavior, and is it justified, and is it not justified, and what can we do in the future, and what do we want it to look like in the future. There's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of expression that needs to come out of that. There's a lot of looking for the roots of the rejection. Where did it start? How did it start? Looking at the family situation. One for me that I've been kind of working on with in terms of shadow is looking at, or reconfiguring, remembering the atmosphere at home as a child. And I think that's a really, because as a baby, if you imagine yourself being brought home as a baby, if you know that there was a situation at home which was, not very nice, which mine wasn't very nice, to actually kind of consider what that environment was like, the atmosphere, how that felt for the baby to come into a sort of a nasty, icky feeling, a kind of a fearful sort of atmosphere. How did that feel for you as a baby? This is how we need to be thinking, in terms of really trying to kind of really create a total, as much as we can, a picture of our past. Trying to put all those pieces back together and to really understand who we are and what made us how we are. So really to understand the roots of that rejection, how it's playing out now, and whether or not any of it is justified. Because what we can do, if we know that we suffer with rejection, then we can perhaps even go the other way and let our partners walk all over us, because we think, oh yeah, but I suffer with rejection, so actually whatever they do is actually probably fine and I'm just an idiot. But we need to be really kind of careful that we don't go the other way. The other one is getting angry from expectations instead of being sympathetic to reality. In the course that I'm writing, that I'm putting together, there is a section on expectations and boundaries, and we do have to be very careful about and be very knowledgeable about what our expectations are, what our expectations and boundaries are in terms of relationships. That goes for parents, friends, family, partners, children. What are our expectations, and are they justified? And are they good? Are they good enough? Are we expecting too much? Or do we expect too little? Do we have enough boundaries? What are our boundaries? What are they? Let's be very clear about what our boundaries are. What are we going to not accept? What do we accept? What do we accept at the expense of ourselves? What do we accept and secretly fucking hate ourselves for? This is what shadow work is. It's about really putting up a mirror and not always liking the reflection, you know. In fact, more often than not liking the reflection. The need to be in control of what's going on in my life. Yeah, that's a big one. Again, you know, like with all of these, it's about understanding where it came from. What is it that made you kind of feel that you have to be in control? What are you in control of? What is it that you're in control of so much that you feel like, oh no, I've actually gone too far and I need to kind of pull back? What is that situation, and where did that stem from? And what will it look like? What does it consider in your mind? Create it in your mind. What does it look like if I was to let go? What am I scared of if I let go? Procrastination. Sometimes shadow work requires making phone calls, organizing, setting budgets, not missing a recycling day. Procrastination. Yeah, I know that one. That's I mean, these are all things that we will always kind of worry about, and they will always be parts of our lives. I think, you know, there are certain times where we put blocks in our own way to the things that we want in life. And I think it's always about consciousness. It's always about being very self-reflective and understanding what we're doing to better ourselves and what we're doing to hinder ourselves from getting to the place that we want to get to. Sometimes shadow work requires making phone calls, organizing, setting budgets, not missing recycling day. These are all kind of like sort of very sort of practical things. And I guess if we have some other sort of unknown shadow material kind of bouncing around in there that's kind of stopping us from doing these very sort of mundane day-to-day things, then we've probably got a lot of work to do. But yeah, procrastination is one. I think that we just need to kind of, it does take a lot of time and effort to kind of consider, you know, how am I stopping myself and how can I get past that? But it's very important that we do. And it does take work, time and effort. It takes a lot of consideration and a lot of writing things down, understanding ourselves about what's really happening. I'm attracted to to others' shadows. What's that about? Okay, well, this is some sort of like shadow dance. And I see this also with them. Sort of, I guess, the play of the anima and animus, you know, how they kind of play together and how they fight together. I mean, when you see like a husband and wife or two partners fighting, you really see the play of if they're sort of heterosexual, then you see the play of their anima and animus coming out. You see his bitchiness and you see her sort of like dominant kind of, oh, I'm this and that. And you see them kind of come out in some sort of symbolic way. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess what you're attracted to in others is a reflection of you also. And so I guess what you need to see is, or consider is, what is it about them that I'm attracted to? And actually, am I just attracted to sort of the negative aspects? And I actually, this came from a woman, and I do know actually that there are a lot of women who are attracted to sort of negative aspects of the man's personality. Sometimes they can see them as sort of like bad boys or whatever. But I do think that with being attracted to other people's shadows, you have to also remember that we usually are attracted to aspects of people's personality that are familiar. And so if we might have had a very negative experience of the mother or father, and then, you know, when we start to recognize the same kind of personality traits in the opposite sex or the sex that we're attracted to, we have to kind of look at that and say, well, that's because this kind of behavior, this narcissism that I'm attracted to is actually very similar to my father's behavior or my mother's behavior, and I can understand that. So there's that kind of thinking. Where did that come from? Why would I be attracted to these very negative aspects of this person's personality? What is it that's very familiar about that to me? So I think that's a good point. That's a very good point I just made there. the freeze response for me. I don't understand what that means. Oh yeah, right. Okay, so if somebody says something, they just freeze. Now I would say that that also means that if you just freeze, that you may not also kind of really express yourself freely as well. And this is something that over time I really have had to work on myself with as well. Really saying what you think at the expense of other people's feelings. It's not something that kind of comes naturally to me, as I found, because it's years and years of suppression of my own emotions as a child. And so when you get older, you continue to do that for the sake of kind of saving everyone else's feelings, which is a taught response, not a taught, a learned response to a very difficult situation as a child for survival. And those things kind of stay with us. They stay with us and they still play out in our adulthood. And so we need to be very, very mindful of those things also. Okay, can't choose. There's about half a dozen a day. I don't know whether to use a laugh or a cry emoji either. Oh, okay. I know what my character flaws are. I just don't know what to do about them. Okay, I mean, I did put a link to my website there. There is a how-to guide. It does need a bit of work. I could make it shorter and a bit more precise. Shadow work is something that you can do by yourself. It really is just about reflecting and knowing and understanding yourself. Talking therapy is very, very useful. If you've got someone like a counsellor, or if you've got even a friend or family member that you trust very, very well, that's willing to listen to you for, I don't know, however long, it's very, very useful to talk about these things, to find a safe place to talk and discuss. Because when you start talking about yourself, all kinds of stuff comes up, things that you hadn't remembered, new memories that you would have suppressed long ago. And you start to develop a better understanding of yourself. So you know what your character flaws are, you don't know what to do about them. You need to find the roots of where they came from. Like with all of these questions, you need to I'm sorry, comments, you need to find out the roots of where these character flaws came from, why they exist within you. And then you need to decide what needs to go, what needs to change, and then you need to look for opportunities to change them. And opportunities can be something like, okay, so I'm a really selfish bastard, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try not to be so selfish anymore. Next time an opportunity comes for me to be generous, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to respond in the same way. I keep having this fight with my girlfriend, and so I'm going to now respond in a slightly different way and see how it plays out. And so this is where we kind of do. This is where we do, and we make the changes that need to be made. So that's what you do. All right, so somebody else said, shadow, or whatever it is, integration through all levels of our big creation, which bodies matter I have inside me, so the light body can be fully created. Okay, so I think he's saying, how do we integrate this shadow material? And the way you integrate is kind of like what I've just said. It's to understand it fully. It's to decide what can go and what can stay. It's the acceptance. It's the acceptance of our very best quality traits, personality traits, qualities, and it's the acceptance also of the more negative, with a full understanding of where they came from, as much as we can. You might not be able to understand all of it, but as much as you possibly can. It's about it's about the doing. The integrating, the doing involves the integrating, because there's a thought behind it. It's that the thought is, okay, I see where I'm going wrong. I'm seeing where I'm making problems. I'm seeing where I'm procrastinating, and now I'm going to do something else. I'm well aware that I keep doing this, and so now I'm going to do slightly different and hope for a better result, and see how that plays out. And it's like reality testing. You have to keep on and try different things to see how it works out, to find the best version of you. And the other thing about this is like sticking with that very sort of authentic, this is me. The other thing about this is about being authentic is, if you find the authentic you is a bit of an arsehole, you got extra work to do. If you find that you upset people a lot, I feel that if you are upsetting people a lot, if you are expressing your truth, and 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 if and perhaps the world isn't quite ready for your truth. You might have the wrong people around you. You know, if you keep upsetting everyone around you, these people that have been with you for a long time or even for a short time, that you might have the wrong people around you. You need to, and also you have to analyze yourself. Am I just being an arsehole? Am I just being like, am I just trying to elevate myself over other people to make my ego feel better? Am I just like being, you know, super spiritual so that I can feel some kind of superiority over other people? So it's that kind of self-reflection is where we get it from. And ultimately we make a decision about what is the best version of me, what is the best version of me, what is the most authentic version of me. The two have to kind of go hand in hand. And as I said, I think last week, you know, when we do our shadow work, it doesn't mean that we become less offensive to people. We might, you know, our truth might offend people. You might have beliefs that the majority don't have, as I do. So you have to make a decision about what it is, you know, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? These are the questions that you have to ask yourself. And I'll just do a little plug here actually, because I am creating a course in shadow work, and it's like the very early stages. It's called Nigredo, and I've also kind of put together a shadow work journal as well, which I'm going to be trying to, well, I've set it up, but it will be kind of on sale in the next few weeks. And so these are things to help people at the very beginning stages of their shadow work journey, because what I found is that there are a lot of people who don't know where to start. They're kind of lost, as I was lost before. With me, you know, the existential crisis, and then the course that I did in Carl Jung psychology with art therapy, that was really the catalyst for the main bulk of the kind of the madness that happened within, you know, and the confrontation with the unconscious, which was very much a kind of, you know, a good year and a half of almost like dream state, you know, a real kind of needing to express, needing to talk, needing to say, needing to write, needing to draw, and put it all on paper, and to see and to lay it out in front of me. It doesn't end there, it keeps on going. But just want to do a little plug there. The next one I've got here is massive action and needing to know the outcome before I start. You can't know the outcome. You can only take, I mean, this is the other thing as well, is that when you do shadow work and you start to do things differently, you have to have courage, you know. And I think there's a quote that says nature loves courage, and if you show courage, you grow. And this is a very sort of basic premise of what we do with children in terms of play. So I'm trained in play. I used to manage sort of play centres, and so I've learned about how children learn through play and the importance of play. And so with play, you know, you want children to push their boundaries and to do things a little bit different, and there has to be some risk involved. And I think that what we have at the moment is a society that doesn't want risk. And without risk, you don't grow, you don't learn. Without taking a chance, without kind of facing your fears, you're never going to grow. And so another aspect of shadow work is knowing what your fears are and walking straight into them and facing them head on and doing something about them, challenging them. And then you grow, you know, you do become elevated in terms of, I think, spiritually, in terms of your self-confidence, your self-awareness, your self-esteem. All of that grows when you push your own boundaries. So the next one I've got here is the need for approval. Ask yourself, why do you need those people's approval? Whose approval do you look for, and why do you need it? And how long has this been going on? And did this start as a child? Because we have been taught to desire the approval of other people from day dot, you know, and this is conditioning. This is social and cultural conditioning. That is also a massive part of shadow work. You know, the kind of the peeling off the layers of understanding how social and cultural conditioning has shaped us, and trying to kind of shed the skin, shed the shit skin, because we don't need that anymore, and we need to recreate ourselves. So yeah, the need for approval. The next one I've got here sorry, it's the need for approval. Sorry, I'm half asleep now. So the need for approval is, yeah, it needs to be shed. It needs to be shed, and we need to understand it fully. So the last one here is recognition of shadow integration. I've kind of talked about recognition of the integration, but the recognition of the shadow is you look at your personality traits, you look at the problems that you have. What is the problem that keeps you up? What is the problem what are your regular thought patterns? So that they will all show you what your problems are. Do you have a problem with your finances, or do you have a problem with a certain group of friends? Do you have a problem like a complex, or are you scared of what are you scared of? What are your negative personality traits? What makes you blow up in rage? What problems do you have with your family? What problems keep on coming up over and over again? So whatever problems you have, they're attached to your shadow generally. So that would be how I would say recognition of your shadow. And also, where are you passive? Where do you allow other people to dominate you? Where do you not express yourself freely? So these are all kind of indicators, symptoms of unconscious shadow material. So I'll leave it there. I've been rambling on long enough. Take care, everyone.